Hello and welcome to Just Do It, a Dewey Brothers podcast. This week we have decided to take a break from your regularly scheduled podcasting and instead take a different turn down a spookier and twistier avenue.
That's right, Alex. This week we will be getting into the true crime podcast genre, and it's something that's very personal to us as we have encountered it this week ourselves.
As a matter of fact, we this very week spent a whole ton of time researching, doubling back down, and trying to figure out the Dewey
Sorry,
Bros.
I just had to crack a beer for this because this is going to be a dark and twisted tale. For the faint of heart out there, this is not the podcast for you.
Right, and this actually happened to us last week, and so we spent detailed notes trying to reconstruct for the listener at home through an auditory experience exactly what happened that fateful night sometime last week in the Dewey Bros and the crushed case.
Well, Alex, I'm gonna paint the scene for our viewers. It was last Monday. We had just come back from a lovely DuCon out at that airfield that we were at. One lovely place, beautiful DuCon, very successful. Our friend Mob Barley hooked us up with a straight direct flight to the Coconut Town and then back up to beautiful Vermont, where we are reunited at last up in beautiful downtown Mom's office.
That's right, this is a reunion episode.
It is, but one with very heavy heart because I remember we walked into the door and everything was a little blurry, but I just remember seeing a nice 30 rack of PBRs, so fresh pibbers, just gone, empty, not a single beer to be seen. I looked in the fridge. Where were the beers? What happened to this lovely case? This case that was taken in its prime, its expiration date much like 2 years into the future and really struck down before its prime. Terrible sight to see.
Now we have to put ourselves in this poor Dewey Brothers place here and just imagine the gut-wrenching heart that he felt when he realized that his 30 rack of pippers was missing from the fridge. Now, he didn't just call the cops. No, this is a modern gentleman and he solves his own cases. So, Eric set about the town trying to figure out what happened to his crushed case.
See, it's a terrible sight. I've heard the folklore. I thought it was only a rumor of the Champlain Valley chugger. So, the story goes, this man, once famous for his drinking appetite, a true brewmaster and a brew slugger. He would venture out upon the town, taking beer wherever he went and slamming brewskis like a frat boy ready to take on the town and get his communications major. He was ready for the world. He would go up and down the street, probably 60, 40, a million beers deep. And this man was everything was smooth, everything was fine until one day he had a beer, just a little sour beer. It was a skunked beer, as you will, and kaputs. He was gone, and no one ever heard of the Champlain Valley Chugger ever again until they started noticing missing cases. So my first go-to thought was, is this folktale real? Is the Champlain Valley Chugger back at it? Is he coming for our beers? I was mortified.
Eric set out with 30 holes right in his heart. Where'd his case go? What was he to do about it? But he was an investigative mind, and so he compiled a list of clues that would lead directly to the Champlain Valley Chugger, or whoever it was that managed to crush this case. And
I had to get down to the bottom of this.
that was the moment he knew one Dewey brother wasn't enough to solve this case, so he had to call in his brother. He called him up and said, Alex, you got to get over here. Before I head back, we got to figure out what happened to this case. And I rolled over and I looked into the fridge and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. I just, the beer sunk low in my belly and it was a tough night.
Alex, I remember the first clue. Well, first, I was so emotionally distraught. I I ran upstairs and the tears were rolling down my cheeks. I just thought, who could have done this to my poor case? So I jumped into Alex's bed because that's a place of comfort. The Normally the sound of the bed frame slats breaking just eases me right into a place of home. And instead of it was the strangest thing. Instead of a breaking bed frame slat, I heard crinkling. I heard metal crinkling. So I have no idea what that could mean, but I do remember that was the first thing that I encountered that was off in the
Wait,
house.
maybe, Eric. I'm just realizing this now. Maybe someone broke in and made it look like I was sleep drinking again and drank some of the pippers and then crushed them up and stored them under my mattress.
That's impossible. It's not like you're a hamster that would sleep it with its own food or anything.
Some people do call me a hamster. That's true. Well, Eric, see, the first thing that caught my eye that fateful night was a wet pair of Euro trunks hanging from the ceiling fan, spinning slowly around.
Oh my goodness, that can only mean one thing, my friend.
What?
I'm talking about a drunkenly disorderly swim late at night. And then the Euro trunks were, of course, taken off for the post regular clothes swim, more drunkenly nude swim. So I think this murderer somehow, I mean this case murderer somehow broke into your wardrobe and stole your Euro trunks because they're just so fashionable, you know?
And then went for a late night skinny dip.
That's what I think. All right.
That's a possibility.
The next possible clue gathered by the intel was the the strange metal cans that Bilo the hamster was gnawing on in his cage. I have no idea what that could mean.
Ooh, yeah. I don't. How could those cans have gotten there? 'Cause clearly, any resemblance to a Pippers can was scratched off at this point. So hopefully you just wrote that down. But maybe we can figure it out now. It's a pretty tough mystery. What do you think?
I I don't know. This is a mystery, one for the books, one for the
Hmm.
ages. I
Hmm.
mean, Scotland Yard, if they could solve this, they would bring their notoriety up from number 1 to like 0. It'd be that impressive.
Well, one of the things, another clue that we noticed was a Just Do It premium wiffle ball bat available now at the Just Do It store with a swirl pattern on the tip propped up against Bulow's cage.
Hmm. So the swirl pattern, cognizant of the beer, is from my obvious research into the frat brother cryptozoologist study, is that they actually will slam brewskis and then play this game where they spin around with a bat out in the yard, and that I think that might be something we may have had a random frat boy what's the word, encounter, an encounter of the frat boy, and they broke
What's
in,
the I'm
found
gonna
our
have to
pivot.
write down a name for that game, and I think it is the unbalanced stick. That's probably the
Yes,
game
yes,
they were playing.
that is about right. I have heard the unbalanced stick is what we scholars call that because we would never partake in such a frivolous and childish game like
No,
the rare
definitely not.
frat bro.
Right. Well,
Um,
we don't know frat boy lingo, so.
we don't. It's much too complex for our
Mm.
large and sophisticated brains. It's just so primal that we can't even fathom it.
What's the
Um,
next thing that Eric stumbled upon that fateful night?
that's that's the craziest thing. So also in the backyard, there's a white plastic table littered with sticky red solo cups just everywhere.
So I'm taking a shot in the dark here, Eric. But that's another frat boy game. Which I mean,
Yeah.
at this point in the podcast, it's got to be the Champlain Valley Chugger.
All the signs point to this mythical beast.
Now, what's the name of the game where the frat boys line up on either sides of a table and then attempt to throw little white orbs into each other's drinks?
Well, I do believe that they call that one uh ping pong ball diver. So they
Mm.
pretend the
Mhm.
ping pong ball is a Olympic athlete performing in the diving competition, and they try to. Of course, there's a row of judges that judge this spectacle, and they have to try and get a delightful and majestic their diver into the other team's pool. So
Mm. That's great. So it's called what was that again?
it was
Ping pong
ping
ball
pong
diver.
diver. Yes.
Mhm. And unbalanced stick. Those are two crazy frat boy games which may have taken place and could
That's
lead to perhaps solving this case, cracking it
it's
open, if you
true.
will.
So, the next piece of evidence that I believe Alex you stumbled upon was
Mhm.
it was the Dukon 2 poster hanging up that said celebrate the Dewey Brothers Sweet Podcast at Dukon 2, crazier and localier, right after Dukon, dated August 3rd. So I believe that is that was yesterday.
Right. That was yesterday. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm. So, I mean, again, that's still pointing towards the Champlain Valley Chugger. But
There's no way to tell. I mean, it's all signs point to the Champlain Valley Chugger for sure.
now, what Eric found next, though, was chilling. Now, at least 2 to 3 hours had passed since the discovery. The beer, if it was anywhere, was definitely warm. A tragedy.
Oh God.
And Eric thought maybe I can save it with some sort of chilled drinking vessel. And as he reached up, excuse me,
Ooh,
as he reached up
yes.
to open the freezer, he pulled out a Twist Municipal Airport All Access to the half of this side of the runway badge, frozen into a disc that had been chilled to keep its contents at a crisp 43 degrees. Now, what was your exact reaction at the moment that you pulled that out of the freezer upon
Oh,
your horrifying discovery?
that was truly deceptive. I started shaking in my boots when I saw this. So the only logical thing that went through my mind was, what can fit in a frisbee? Well, the a normal person would think, oh, roughly 3 to 4 cans of a beer, which that's true, but we got to think deeper than that. We saw the Dukon Twist Municipal Airport half of the
All
runway
access to
badge.
half of the runway badge. Yeah, it was stuck
So
to the frisbee.
obviously, this had to have been an inside job. So I think the only reason that frisbee was in that freezer is because of a mechanic. I believe a Twist Municipal um, airport mechanic had come in to the home, and obviously it was sticky because of all of the oil, and he works with the airplanes. He was probably just repairing the freezer. That's I think we had to throw out this piece of evidence. It made no sense.
Yeah,
I've
it didn't
never
make
heard
any
of
sense,
anyone.
especially at the time.
I've heard no one ever chugging beer out of a frisbee. So that obviously makes it's inconclusive. It can't mean anything. I mean, I bet it was just the fridge and freezer repairman coming and doing his business and accidentally leaving. Because I normally like to keep frisbees just in the freezer, as you get better grip with them.
Right,
So that's
absolutely. Now, I at
beyond
this
that makes
point
no
had
sense.
some doubts because why would the Champlain Valley Chugger know what Dukong 2 was? The party after Dukon dated April or August 3rd, That's a
Yes.
bit bizarre. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about it.
Well, this takes us to the jaw dropping, and I believe what really points us, the great detectives that we are, in the right direction. And that was, of course, the eviction notice on the front door, printed claiming disorderly drunken conduct and multiple noise complaints. Please leave immediately. Which I, I thought that could only mean one thing. And Alex, I remember what you said to this as well.
I said, we've been had. It must be the frat boys. They're the only ones who could be that drunk and disorderly. There's no way that I could possibly get that belligerent. As a matter of fact, Eric, it was at that moment I reached into my pocket and pulled out the sticky keys to the ignition of a Cessna with Bob Marley's blood still on it.
Mob Barley?
Bob Marley's blood still
Oh
on
my
it.
goodness. Well,
Yeah.
Alex, that's a tragedy, but I was gonna say with in regards to the eviction, this is
Hmm.
obviously goes higher than any Champlain Valley chugger could go.
Oh
This
yeah.
is government ordinated.
Hmm.
This is really an inside job. Like the government has an effect in
Plus, how are those
I
keys going to get so sticky and also be in the ignition of our very own Cessna that may or may not have ran over Mob Barley?
it honestly makes no sense. But
Hmm.
I do recall from my years of researching the frat boy that they do this thing where they take keys and they jam them into beer cans. Very sick and twisted, might I add. It's
It
a
it
terrible
reminds them
show
of
of
their
sport.
own childhood trauma, right? So they take it out on the beer cans.
Yes. So I believe the term is called rifling. So they
Mm. Hmm.
very
It's
it's
just like
similar.
rifling through the childhood memories of trauma that they had before they just stab that beer can and down it.
It's very similar to shambonging,
Hmm.
I believe.
Hmm.
In it's an
Yeah.
effort to get drunk very quickly as a way to rifle through all of your memories and suppress
Hmm.
them
Hmm.
with drunkenly order.
I got
So
you, of course.
this points to a very sophisticated, maybe a leader of the frat boy, maybe one that's already infiltrated our government and has this sort of police ties that can post up eviction notices. You know,
So Eric,
it
what was the next clue that we found?
well, this one is kind of scary as it relates to people very close to our lives.
Hmm.
So the I remember Alex was walking around mortified, of course, and you decided, wait a minute, we were just at DuCon. Let me check the phone for any voicemails, and there were two voicemails on the home phone line. One was from Seth, and it said, "Hey, Dewey Bros, Seth here, and I would just like to say I am so looking forward to DuCon 2 later this week. I'd love to come and drink some beers with you bros, as long as Steve isn't there." So a pretty normal voicemail. And
Yeah.
the next one was, of course, oh man, I'm sorry I left that party early, but I saw Seth's car in the driveway and I didn't want to be near him at all after what he did to my beautiful lawn. You have any way I can get back at him, by the way? Also, man, I sure love Pibbers, but not as much as you two love Pibbers. I remember that one time when you guys were just slugging them like crazy. I don't think you guys even remember that time. So
Wow,
really,
Eric.
I
See, listening to
I don't know.
those,
It could be Seth or Steve. I'm not sure.
I think it could be either of them who stole all of our pibbers at DuCon too, which is what I'm starting to get an idea of what happened here. But you know what the most shocking part of the whole night was, Eric?
Well,
It was at
I
that
think I
moment
recall it.
that you
Yeah.
looked down
Yes. Oh, I do remember.
and
I looked down a
noticed
lot.
that
I also noticed a lot.
Eric looked down and noticed that his watch was frozen at exactly beer o'clock.
Oh my goodness. You're right. You're right. That was chilling. So that means the killer of this case had to have been close
A
enough to
mass
us.
murderer, if you will.
This absolute genocidal, beer genocidal crazy man must have gotten close enough to us where he got into my watch and was able to program it to be bureau clock, which coincidentally is any time past 8 in the morning. But that is besides the point. I honestly I was scared. This man is we're dealing with a professional mass beer killer. It's
That vindicated both Seth and Steve because neither of them have that technical expertise.
mhm. Also, I've never let Seth nor Steve anywhere near my left hand, which is where I keep my watch, of course. So it obviously it couldn't have been either one of those two. So this is the craziest thing is, Alex. Remember 2 weeks ago when we re-upped our frat boy protective fence?
Yeah.
So for all
That was still
those.
intact. I went and checked immediately after that epiphany.
So for the people out there that don't know, there's this wonderful company called the Library that installs a fence of literature of scientific literature and research papers all around your border, all around your property, that will actually drive away any possible frat boys if they exist, because of course they're still cryptoids, which we don't know if they actually do exist, but as a preemptive protective barrier, we went to the library and they installed this wonderful protective barrier around our home.
Yeah, at the library, I went, Eric, and checked for any scientific papers relating to the frat boy, and I can find no definitive proof that frat boys or frat parties exist in all of the literature.
Well, obviously, because uh, the trick is if you go around on a college campus and ask for where the library is, do you know what? Do you know what happens? You ask where it is, and as soon as someone's going to say where it is, you hear echoes of nerd, and then boom, moral destroyed. It's a scary sight to see.
I mean, the library is where all the cute girls hang out, though. So,
Nah, dude. That's the bio lab, baby.
ooh, that's true. That's true. Anyway, I was fondly remembering the bio lab,
Yeah. They keep
and
koalas there, man. And the koalas are great
exactly.
at like keeping down that eucalyptus that just grows everywhere. Man, crazy stuff.
So anyway, I was fondly remembering that when I think, like lightning, it struck.
Hmm.
The damp copy of La Orange sitting in my own rocking chair. I mean, come on, Eric. There was only one person it could have been, and I hate to admit it.
Who do you think the suspect is? Because by now, I I can't imagine anyone with an IQ under 300 can solve this case.
Oh yeah, me
Um,
neither.
so personally, I have an IQ of 301, so I'm able to enjoy the simpler things and the finer things of life.
Oh, see, I'm the dumb brother, which is why my IQ is only 300 and a half. But I also cracked this case open like a cold PBR.
That is right. It was none other than.
Eric, do it.
Oh no! Well, that's crazy because my findings found out that it could have been no one. It had to be someone. There is DNA all over the place. I'm
Oh,
talking
just spittle
urine,
everywhere.
vomit, drool, lots of hairs everywhere. After we tested this, it was obviously a DeWitt. And I narrowed it down between Eric and Alex DeWitt, and it was Alex DeWitt.
Oh my goodness, Eric, do you know what this means? It was a double homicide. A
Wait.
double hepta homicide of PBRs in our fridge last night,
Uh-oh.
2 nights
Wait a
ago.
minute. Alex, do you know what this means?
Yeah.
We're the Champlain Valley Chuggers.
Oh no.
We got to go to the local library and get exercised real quick. I mean, wait, exorcist? No, exercised and get this demon out of us.
Wow, I think on that bombshell, Eric, we got to end this podcast and thank our sponsors.
That is right. I would like to first and foremost thank Homegrown Hops, to which PBR is not made out of. But if you wanted to make homegrown R, now that I can get behind that.
This podcast is brought to you by Dukon 2, the cooler Dukon after Dukon, but like local and stuff. Come
You guys
come
missed
hang with
it.
the Dewey Bros. You missed it.
Yukon 2, crazier and localier. Of course, we have to thank tonight's big sponsor of this true crime podcast, which is Big Rose. Nothing pairs better than true crime and finding out who killed that case and who solved the case of the case that was cased, other than Big Rose. Buy a case today.
This podcast would not be possible without the frisbee in the freezer for better grip and beverage control precision. Precision frisbees for the freezer to drink all of your beverages at exactly 43 degrees.
And of course, we would have to thank none other than the the people down at Chateau de Yabo for coming up with great drinking games such as Ping Pong Diver and Rifling. Wow, these games are fun to enjoy from the whole family. Take that back. Don't let your kids play these. That would be irresponsible. Or do. I don't know. I'm not the cops.
Let's not forget Unbalanced Stick, the newest game from Yabo Industries. And this has been a Just Do It Dewey Brothers True Crime podcast, as the brothers tackled the mystery of the crushed case. I'm Alex.
I'm Eric.
And for the love of God, man,
just solve the case and send it. You can do both at your local library.
That's right. This was a library endorsement all along. Get them.
They didn't see it. They didn't see it coming. I got my library card. I'm running to the library.
Oh, no.